This is Gus Summers, and you're watching In-Show Celebrities. This is the time I take every Monday to talk about my favorite films and actors. Well, this week, we have another grand actor of Hollywood. Not only was he known as an actor, but choreographer and a fantastic tap dancer. Of course, I'm talking about the great Gregory Hines. His fantastic talent was known throughout the industry for his fantastic tap moves. And in every film he did, you can always see either his tap dancing or just how wonderful a talent he really was. Well, first up, we have a movie that is so, in my opinion, historically significant. It should be viewed by everybody. You know, it's a great reflection of political views, the reflection of Gregory Hines' wonderful talent, and how perfectly he can work with any caliber of dancer or actor. The film, White Nights. He co-stars along with one of the greatest ballet dancers the world has ever known, Mikhail Baryshnikov. Well, Baryshnikov plays a dancer who defected from Russia to the United States. His name is Rodchenko. And in the beginning of the film, he's on a flight, and the flight has to make an emergency landing in Russia, Siberia, I believe. Well, he is a Russian defector. As soon as it lands, they go through, all the passports of everybody. He's trying to hide his passport destroyed, but they find out who he is. Of course, now he's back on Russian soil. He isn't leaving. There's an actor, Jerzy Skolinowski. He plays a colonel who knew Baryshnikov before he defected, and now is in charge of his rehabilitation, basically. And what he does to, get him accustomed to the wonderful life of, Russia again, he puts him with Gregory Hines and his wife. Gregory Hines plays Ray Greenwood. He is an American who lives in Russia now. He was disillusioned by America. He, because of his personal treatment, the treatment of just the country in general, its racism and such, and he fell for the propaganda of communism and the Russian living, and centralized government, that he thought that was where he would get more freedom. So he decides to defect. The colonel is the one that helped with the defection, and so now Gregory Hines finds himself in Russia, disillusioned by the idea of communism, and the colonel approaches him and his wife. His wife, again, another fine actress, portrayed beautifully by Isabella Rossellini. They are like a traveling acting group. They do tap dance, they act, they do all sorts of things. So the colonel tells him that Mikhail Baryshnikov is going to come live with them, and they're going to help reorient him to the Russian way of living. And so from there, they begin to, at first, they're hostile to each other, and you have Baryshnikov telling him how much better the American way of living is, and then you have Gregory Hines saying, "Oh yes, this is how it was for me in the United States," and so on and so forth. Well, what ends up happening is that Isabella Rossellini, Gregory Hines, Mikhail Baryshnikov become friends, because they literally live like in a one-room apartment out in Siberia, an abandoned town, basically. And what the colonel wants is for Baryshnikov to dance at this major recital, and and they're going to promote him. Look, he came back to Russia. The American way of living is horrible. Blah blah blah. And so Gregory Hines' job is to convince him to dance. Well, what ends up happening when they become friends, they all decide that they need to somehow escape Russia. And so the movie is about them getting word out and somehow trying to figure out a way to escape. While along the way, the colonel introduces an old love of Mikhail Baryshnikov to help him, to ground them again. And again, another fine actress, Miss Helen Mirren. She plays an old love interest, Galina, if I remember her name correctly, and she was telling him when they have their moments, you don't know what it was like after you defected. They thought I had something to do with it. It's taken me all these years to rebuild my life, and so as the story goes, as I mentioned, you see Baryshnikov and Gregory Hines dancing. Gregory Hines is trying to convince him to dance, and they start dancing and practicing, and meanwhile they are trying to escape. So it's a fantastic movie. Besides, there's this great scene where you see Baryshnikov and Gregory Hines dancing. You see them warming up, and it's the big dancing that anyone who knows the movie has seen this grand dance scene. But it's wonderful to see Gregory Hines, a fantastic tap dancer who is tap dancing since he was a little kid. If I remember correctly, he had a Broadway debut when he was like 7 or 8 in tap dancing, and from then on just continue with that. And here's Mikhail Baryshnikov, a fantastic, one of the great ballet dancers. And here they are, East and West, meeting together and dancing. A great scene, and also, as I mentioned before, a great reflection of the period, of the differences between East and West, and some of the personal experiences that someone has in regards to westernized living and easternized living. For that alone as well, a great reflection, and still applicable today. Seeing the difference between how the West lives versus the East. Well, one of the things with Gregory Hines is he had a great comedic side. Actually, when he got his first film, they started noticing, wow, he has great comedic timing. When you see him, he's a great dramatic actor like he was in White Nights, but when you see him in when he does his comedy, he had perfect timing. I mean, just example of a great talent. Well, one other movie he did was Running Scared. His co-star was another funny man, Mr. Billy Crystal. Gregory Hines plays Ray Hughes, and Billy Crystal plays Dan Costanzo. They're partners, and they're basically bumbling partners. Things that happen to them. They like their work, but they just do it their own way, and their own way always causes trouble. Well, the film is that they're after a up and rising drug dealer, notorious, ruthless, and such, and he's portrayed again wonderfully by Jimmy Smits. Again, one of his early roles as he was up and coming. He has an informant. Gregory Hines and Billy Crystal have an informant called Snake. And it's again another great actor, Joe Pantoliano. You recognize him from all sorts of places. So he plays the informant. He agrees to wear a wire. They go to where Jimmy Smits is, and he arranges a meeting, and you find out that it was a double cross. Snake knew that, Jimmy Smits knew that Snake was wearing a wire, and he was going to bring them. He was going to kill them, and the only reason that they escape is that there were 2 undercover cops. There they come and help them and arrest everybody, and because of them they were saved. Well, what ends up happening is after this big bust, the captain goes and says, "We heard everything you did because of the wire. You guys are a bunch of fools. You're lucky that I don't fire you right now." And so what ends up happening is that they decide, we're practically. Why don't we just retire? We're practically there. Let's just retire. We're gonna go away, open the bar that we always wanted to, and just call it quits. Well, they decided to do that, but when they find out that Jimmy Smits got bail and was free, they decide, well, before we go, we need to have one. Let's get one last caller. Let's get Jimmy Smits, and that will be our crowning glory. We get this guy. We end up on a high note. And so, so they're after Jimmy Smits. The two other cops who saved them. The captain assigns Gregory Hines and Billy Crystal to train them to take their place. So now these guys who are up and coming, now they have to train them. But the two police officers, you know them, you've seen them around. They've been around forever. John Grease and Stephen Bauer. Of course, you remember John Grease from he played Uncle Rico in Napoleon Dynamite, and Stephen Bauer was Manny in Scarface. So again, two great actors, in this movie. So the whole film is just, Billy Crystal and Gregory Hines bumbling their way through this through this crime drama, trying to get Jimmy Smits. Again, you see them at one point, they're in a building, they're tied up, they had to have their pants taken off, and they're coming out, and they're, shooting the bad guys, and they're wearing their whitey tidies. In their jackets, and that's the scene. They're out there, in the middle of Chicago, without any pants. It's a great film. Not just for its action, but its comedy. And one last film, a last film. Of course, I think it like White Nights, it exemplifies who Gregory Hines was, the fantastic tap dancer that he was. Of course, the film I'm talking about is Tap. He plays Max Washington. He was the son of a great tap dancer who had his own dancing studio or nightclub. I'm trying to remember, but Gregory Hines decided to fall into the life of crime. He was a burglar. He gets arrested, and he just gets out of prison. This is where the movie starts. And when he goes back home, he's seen the old neighborhood. He goes back and finds some of his old friends. Well, the opening scenes of the movie, fantastic. I mean, a great scene. You have many of the greats of the tap dance world. When he goes up to the old studio up top, you see Mr. Sammy Davis Jr. I mean, he's in there. He's greeting them. They're in there tap dancing, and they're bantering back and forth. Oh, this tap dancer, that tap dancer, blah blah blah, and Sammy Davis says, "Oh, really?" And he starts tap dancing, and then all the old tap dancers start coming along. I mean, you have one of my favorites, Sandman Sims. he was a grumpy old guy. He was always like that. And that's exactly how I was in the whole movie. I taught him that move. I mean, great actor. But not only Sandman Sims, you had Harold Nicholas. He was known, it was part of him and his brother, the Nicholas brothers. But you also see Jimmy Slide, Steve Condos. There's just a few. And that opening scene's fantastic because they all do their own steps and they do their own routines, and it's wonderful. I mean, it's just great to see. So the film is, he's back. He's back out of prison, and he wants to start a new life. Well, two things are pulling him in different direction. One is, of course, tap dancing, because he's the son of a legend, and Sammy Davis Jr. is really, you can dance, you can do it, and he's like, well, I don't know if I want to do that anymore. And Sammy Davis Jr. has a daughter, and Amy. portrayed wonderfully by Suzanne Douglas. You know, she's a tap dancer and everything, and she doesn't want anything to do with Gregory Hines because you know that's her old life. She's moving on into you know, Broadway dancing and, you know, Broadway shows, so she's really building herself a career. So now here comes Gregory Hines, and you know, he still has feelings for her, and she still has for him, but she doesn't want to be dragged down, you know, in the old life. So eventually, you know, she begins to, you know, become friendly with him. They, you know, they start building their relationship again. So he's being pulled into that manner. She wants to get him auditions for the Broadway shows and such, so she's pulling him in that direction. Sammy Davis Jr. wants him to dance, open maybe the old restaurant or studio again, and you know, have tap dance. While in the other direction, has his old friend who got him into the life of crime, anyways. He's Nicky. Again, another grand actor. You know him from a Scandal right now, Joe Morton. I mean, you can see him in films. You remember him from Speed. So he's like a local crime boss or what have you. Then he wants Max Washington to commit, you know, another crime. You know, I know who you are. I know what you do, and you know, just you know, just do this last job for me, and that's it. So you know, that's what the movie's about. You know, he's being pulled in two different directions, but you know, great movie. But there's a scene that I love, and he goes to see Suzanne Douglas at the at a bar where they're dancing and performing. Well, they convince him to dance. You know, oh, I don't have any tap shoes. Oh, here you go, I got your tap shoes. I don't have the music. Oh, we got music. So, anyways, they start dancing, and they end up, you know, going from the inside to the outside, and you know, they're dancing along. You know, he was telling them, you know, how you do it is that you have to listen to the beats around you. Listen, and what I like about it is that Gregory Hines was known for his own interpretation of dance. He invented his own dance moves. Besides knowing the classic moves, he invented his own dance moves. And he said you needed to listen to the rhythm of the sounds around you. And when you hear this, when you watch the scene, you hear what he's saying. That is actually his philosophy. When he says, he goes, you know, hear the traffic, hear the traffic go by, boom, 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 and hear the machinery over there, boom, boom, tap, 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 and they start tapping, and people start listening, and he goes, feel the rhythm of the music, you know, fantastic. But there's this one scene, you know, when it's, you know, everyone is, everyone's tap dancing, and you know, everyone's getting into the rhythm. You know, it's at one of the high points of the scene, where you see him in front of one of these stores. And there's guys behind him, they were kind of tap dancing, tap, tap, tap. And then what's wonderful is that they get in perfect sync. I mean, the scene's maybe only less than, you know, like 60 seconds, but they're in perfect sync. You know, they're dancing, dancing, and when you watch it, it was, if tap at its best, because their moves were perfect. And even at the end, when you see them, they're you know, when they move, they're like, yeah, because they knew that they hit it and they were perfect. I mean, great scene. Again, a great movie all around. But you know, fantastic actor. You know, every time I saw Gregory Hines, I thought, you know, what a great actor, great scene. I was always excited to see him dance. But you know, these are movies that you have to see. Like I said, White Nights, great movie. Running Scared, you know, with Billy Crystal, you know, comedy. You know, how can it be wrong? And of course, Tap, just to see him at his best. You know, these again, you know, these were just, you know, some of the movies that this fine actor did. You know, he did so much, and unfortunately, he was taken too soon. You know, and I can only imagine what more he could have done had he had, you know, just a little more time. But again, you know, fantastic movies, fantastic. Got to check them out. Well, that's what I got for you today. Well, this is Gus Summers, and this is In-Show Celebrities. And this is the time I take every Monday to talk about some of my favorite films and actors. And don't forget that every Thursday from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time is the In-Show. Be sure to visit us on theinshow.com. That's where I host the show, and I bring on celebrity guests and just performers, entertainers, everyone, just to talk about, any current projects or whatever it is what they that they want to talk about. Remember, don't forget, every Thursday 1 to 2 p.m. And of course, look for us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Flickr, Instagram, all those great social media sites. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, Gus has left the building.